Hi there, and welcome to Discipleship Minutes, brought to you by Revelation Radio and Water Springs Discipleship School. It's our heart that you would be blessed by these few moments in God's Word and challenged to go deeper in your walk with God. And now, with today's Discipleship Minutes, here's Alipio Amaral.
Back in the day, and I mean back in the day, hundreds of years ago, there was a man named Harry Blondin who was famous for his tightrope walking feats. He would tightrope walk all over the place in all kinds of dangerous, precarious situations. And at one point, he tied a tightrope from the American side of Niagara Falls to the Canadian side of the Niagara Falls. And he walked across it, and he drew huge crowds on both cliffs watching him walking back and forth. He walked back and forth in a potato sack, maybe hopping on the tightrope line. He walked back and forth while pushing a wheelbarrow. Apparently, at one time, he actually tightrope walked across Niagara Falls, but in the very middle, he, on a portable stove, cooked his breakfast there, and then the breakfast was then lowered down to the Lady in the Mist boat so all the tourists could eat some of what he was cooking. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but Harry Blondin did cross back and forth over the Niagara Falls, and the Prince of England, I'm told, came to observe his show. And Harry said to the prince, he said, "Do you believe that I can walk across this tightrope?" To which the man said, "Well, yes, of course, you've been doing it all day." He says, "Do you believe I can take this wheelbarrow here and walk it across the tightrope back and forth without any problem?" And the man said, "Well, of course, yes." He said, Harry Blondin then get into this wheelbarrow. If you really believe, show it. That's what faith is. Faith takes action. Faith believes. Faith trusts. When we turn to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, everyone knows this chapter very well. They're very familiar with it, the hall of faith. The word faith does, in fact, repeat quite often in Hebrews 11, but it repeats in the context of a phrase. The phrase is by faith, by faith, by faith. Not just faith. Faith is a thing. Faith is a noun, but by faith is something completely different. By faith is a description. It's a description of a lifestyle lived by faith. And when you look at Hebrews 11 and you look at all of the men and women who served God, who did great things for God, you see these people that lived lifestyles of faith. But then at the end of chapter 11, it talks about how some of these people who lived by faith, lifestyles of faith, suffered tremendously, were sawn in half, thrown to lions, burned alive, and all this suffering that they experienced. And yet it's in the same context of the author of Hebrews saying, these lived lifestyles of faith. Because I think what the author is trying to say to this church of Jewish Christians who have gone back to their old Jewish ways, thinking that Christianity is not better than Judaism, he says, look, if you're going to live a lifestyle of faith, in God's economy, doing great things is what it means to live a lifestyle of faith. But in God's economy also, to endure great things is to do great things. And the author goes on to say, look, you guys need to have some endurance. You've lacked confidence because you've got messed up in habitual sin and are weak and scared to approach God. You can come boldly before his throne, the author says. And he goes on to say to this church in chapter 12 of Hebrews that the reason that they are so hesitant to approach God, the reason that they will never actually live a lifestyle of faith is because every time that they suffer, they think God is punishing them for their sins. And he's communicating to this church, the author of Hebrews, to this Jewish Christian church, that living a lifestyle of faith is doing great things for God. but it also can be enduring great things for God. But you need to, he says to this church, understand that every time you encounter suffering, it isn't God judging you for your sin. If that's what you subscribe to, you're never, ever, ever going to endure great things for God.
Thanks for listening to Discipleship Minutes, brought to you by Water Springs Discipleship School and Revelation Radio. For the studio recording or for more information about Water Springs Discipleship School, you can click the videos link under On the Air at revelationradio.fm or go to watersprings.net/WDS. Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us again next time for Discipleship Minutes.